Welcome to the Disability Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team Disability. So here we are. This is January 4th? We're going to talk a little bit about
2025.
it's what? 2025?
2025.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Happy New Year, everybody. We're going to do a little recap on our year. We're going to share some exciting news about some stupidity that we did. And we're talking a little bit about our upcoming year. I at least see your face. Like, what stupidity? No, it's great.
Not what this was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
We're going to sound smart. That's the
sounds
plan.
smart. Yes, as planned. And then we're going to get into the content because we have not put out a podcast full of nuggets of content. We're going to talk about biking international expeditions, everything we can put into biking, how to prep it and maintenance and bike repair kit and bike boxes. We're going to get into all that, but after we get into our exciting news. How many episodes have we done?
This right here is our 50th episode. Like, we haven't been numbering them, and I just kind of wondered, like, how many episodes have we made? And if I counted correctly, this is number 50. So that's kind of exciting.
That is kind of exciting. Like, who knew? You start a podcast and you start talking, and before you know it, I guess because our podcasts are more than an hour, so there's like 60 or 70 hours of us just rambling on about adventure racing, but hopefully we've provided value to everybody.
And they're also like a little irregular, like we don't do them like once a week or, even once a month. It's kind of like when we have a race and then kind of like when we feel like it. And right now we feel like it because we're getting ready to go again.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like 23 degrees outside, and I just spent a bunch of time packing in the garage or one of the garages.
Yeah, so we leave on Wednesday, the 8th, for New Zealand for the Magnificent.
Yep.
So that's our next exciting race, and I'm jumping ahead, but yeah, that's our next race.
This is Jason Magnus, who does, America's Toughest Race, and his evil twin brother in New Zealand that's like, we're going to make New Zealand's toughest race and try to kill everybody. So
no, they have not billed it as the toughest race.
They haven't. But we know they're going to make it the toughest. We know them.
Well, it might be the toughest for us, but not for the local New Zealanders, which are
this is going to be like a
probably
normal
80 or 90% of the field.
For anybody that's a Kiwi, this is like a normal Tuesday. They're not even going to break a sweat. They can hold their breath for the whole race. They're going to laugh at these poor, sad Americans coming over, just getting their butt kicked.
But anyway, looking back over the year, most recently we moved. We moved in October to Richmond, the Richmond area. We're actually in Chesterfield, and we're a little bit southwest of our favorite Virginia state park, which is Pocahontas State Park.
Pocahontas.
It's a great place for mountain biking, hours and hours of trails and all sorts of trails. There's sculpted trails and old school trails, and it's right
jump lines.
Back door. What'd you say?
Jump lines.
Jump lines.
Trails that are made for just jumping. Like people come out there with the full face helmets and the Kevlar chest plates and all that stuff that so that when you wreck, you survive. It's like, this is where it's like compared to Virginia Beach. Remember, hopefully everybody knows we used to live in Virginia Beach, perfectly flat, zero elevation. You might shift gears up one, up down one, maybe. Other than that, it's just flat. I mean, I was riding my bike with like 13 pounds of lead ankle weights for training, and now we actually have hills. Like you actually have to downshift and pedal uphill, and it's amazing. It's hard.
Yeah. That said, this is an open invitation. If anyone's in our area, we'd love to go train with you, maybe take you out on some trails, hit us up. What else do we want to share about that?
Well, that was the stupidity, because I was like, most people know it's like, I'm like a homeless guy living out of some warehouse somewhere. And then the fact that we both moved in together into the same house, it's like big news.
I didn't know what you meant by you were going to share the stupidity. So my naivety, I haven't even, I've gotten over that. And we might have shared that we were going to move into RVs and We ended up not doing that. It once we realized our RVs were going to be a home base primarily, we weren't going to be driving them around. They would be our home base, and the fact that the cost of living felt like we were burning money essentially. So we decided to buy a house out here in the country. It's out in the country. It's a real small house and plenty of parking. So uh, Chip can park any vehicle he wants anywhere he wants
I
to.
got the big van, the little van, the boat, the Celica. Yeah, we got
There's
jacks all
no
over the place.
homeowners association or anything like
No,
that. Like we are in the woods, and you could probably call us bumpkins now.
we are now bumpkins.
And I'm quoting Chip too from the USARA article that um, Wild Bill wrote and interviewed Chip about volunteering in North Carolina after the hurricane. Anyway, he did use the word bumpkins, and I don't know. Sometimes Chip doesn't have a
It was
filter.
meant lovingly. I identify as a bumpkin, by the way. So like somebody that just wants to be on a four-wheeler with a chainsaw, like I don't need to like wear a suit and tie. I don't need to listen to nice music and go to theater. I just want to like blow shit up, cut shit, burn shit, break shit, drive shit.
Really, Chip,
Yes.
do we need to start this recording
No,
over?
no, I meant every word I said.
Okay, we need to get to the meat and potatoes of this
Yes.
episode. But we did want to recap over the year. Like moving took up a lot of time in our fall, but right after we moved, we went to Ecuador. So we've been back home. But starting way back in January, it almost seems like more than a year ago, we did the C to C.
February.
February, we did the Rev 3 50 hour. Chip did that. We did the Hogback. That was a 2 day back-to-back races. We did Expedition Alaska.
That was
We
amazing. That
followed
was a
that
bucket
by,
list.
yeah, Nationals in West Virginia, then the Fall Foliage, and then Ecuador. So we had that's 3 expedition races. That's half as many as we did in 2023.
Yeah.
If anyone remembers, at the end of 2023, we kind of said that's too many. It was a little bit too tight. And also in 2024, we visited my daughter who was studying abroad in Spain. So we had a trip in there to Spain. And I have to say, this year's schedule, um, it felt a little more relaxed here and there, but it was also full. Like we fill our time no matter what. So,
Well,
um,
between Spain and the move, it's like we did two expeditions in addition to the
yes,
three. Or
yes,
so, and the
exactly.
national
So,
was a lot like an expedition. I mean, I know the race was only 30 hours, but still, we got to get there early and stay late, and there's pomp and circumstance and all of that. Yeah,
but from the standpoint of in 2023, I felt like there was just busy all the time, a lot of balancing on my part of, getting things done and everything. And that continued to 2024 too. Like, it might not have been quite as stressful. Um, but anyway, I just thought I'd say that. I think maybe the sweet spot is 4 expeditions per year.
yeah,
So,
and
so
a couple
next year,
international because C to C is local. Like we can like drive there, and I know Colorado
okay.
last year we drove there, which
We
was
did
like a
Colorado the year before that.
year before
That
that.
was
Yeah,
in 2023,
yeah. Yeah.
not
Like I keep
24.
thinking we're in 2024, but we're really in 25. So last year is actually 23 now. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
No, last year is 24.
It's 24, but what I was thinking is 23.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But anyway, so for 2025, we already said we're headed to New Zealand. That's like a bucket list destination for us. We couldn't turn it down, even though we've really only been home basically a month between Worlds and New Zealand. And we're going a little bit early to New Zealand because it's so far away. And we really feel like that adds to the experience so much.
Yeah. And we can
So
work from home. So we can do everything we need to do. I mean, the time zones are a pain in the butt, but we can do everything we need to do no matter where we are. And we carry a Starlink with us and yada yada. Um, and but the other thing, I mean, as most people know, like if you listen to any of the podcasts, especially Randy Erickson's, because he's been doing the podcast forever, like Godzone was a really big thing. Like that was everybody's bucket list race. And then Godzone stopped doing Godzone. And it was like a big drama. And it is like, holy crap, like we missed the chance to go to New Zealand. And then luckily, Jason and his brother came up with like, hey, like Godzone stopped, like maybe we can do a race in New Zealand because his brother lives there. So I'm super excited that they picked it up and that we didn't miss the chance because the I mean, just think the racers from New Zealand are just so fast. And it's like I want to go to this place where these magical people come from that go twice as fast as everybody else in the world. And we just got to hang out with Fear Youth on our Ecuador tour. And so now we got to know some people in New Zealand and they're super cool and super fast. And it's just so I don't know, it's just I really feel like this is the place we need to go spend some time.
And let's take a minute to say how amazing they are. I mean, they are, I think, between 19 and 22 years old or 23 years old. And Molly injured her ankle like a couple days before the race. And um, was it Josiah that was puking at the start line? So they weren't feeling good, yet they came in sixth place, I think.
Yeah, they still
That's
push
incredible.
everybody. Like that was
And
amazing.
good, nice kids, they were really fun. But we're headed to New Zealand. That's our first race of 2025. Chip is going to be doing the C to C. I'm not able to make it this time, so we'll see who he drums up to race with. Um, we're planning to do the Epic. We're also planning to go to Morocco. So I'm
That's a big
super
one.
excited about Morocco in April. We plan to do nationals and we plan to do the world in Canada. So that's basically four expedition races this year. We might be able to fit in some other shorter races in there too,
Yeah.
but it's going to be an exciting year
There'll
and
definitely
we
be
won't be
some.
moving. So that's exciting.
It's like that there's that TED talk where they have the jar and it's like when it comes down to life and your goals, like if you put the sand in first and then the little rocks and then the big rocks, nothing fits. So it's like we're putting in these big rocks, like we're gonna go to Morocco, we're gonna go to Canada, we're gonna do nationals, and then and of course New Zealand. So these are the big rocks. And then we're going to put in the little rocks, which is like the epic, and we're going to probably do some races down south with Warrior, and hopefully like Adventure Addicts has a couple races we want to do, and so there's just a ton of them we want to do. So then the sand comes in, which is like email and work and
Email,
all that stuff,
your favorite thing to
laundry,
do,
mowing grass. Now that we have a house with
your other favorite thing to do,
yeah, not doing
mow
grass.
grass and send emails.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it'll be a great year. But so we want to move on to the topic of the day is bike stuff. We're getting ready to leave. So this is on our mind. And so we thought we'd talk about bikes as it relates to international travel and expedition races specifically. So we thought we'd talk first about hardtails versus full suspension. And I'll start by saying Chip rides a totally different bike than I ride.
yeah,
I always have a full suspension bike. It's not my only bike anymore, which that's what I used to say. I would only use a full suspension because it's my only bike. But now that I have, my old bike and my newer-ish bike, they're both full suspensions. I really feel more comfortable on that. And, when you're racing for a long time, I think it makes a difference. But, I think that the trade-off is it might be a little bit heavier. So I think that's basically the only drawback. Um, what do you think, Chip? Since you ride a hardtail, what's the
yeah.
reasoning?
And I've ridden both. Like for the longest time, I rode the stump jumper full suspension for the first bunch of races that I did. It came down to weight. Um, I realized especially the international races. Like if you race like Shenandoah Epic, you're going up and down like really bumpy, rocky single track and full suspension works, or maybe Croatia. full suspension would have been the better option. But the vast majority of races we do internationally, you're just spending 90+% of the time on dirt roads. And even the C to C, you might get some single track, but most of the time you're just going on roads. And so I realized the hardtail is lighter if you, especially if you have a carbon fiber, and then you can put a frame bag on there that holds a lot of stuff. And so that's probably like I'm willing to take the pain of not having a full suspension to carry extra stuff on the bike, and I really like that trade-off. Now I realize there are some bikes out there like the Super Caliber, I think it's Trek that makes it, where you could almost put a frame bag and it's got a little bit of suspension, but those things are like many, many, many thousands of dollars, and I'm just not willing to pay that. Right now, I'm riding a Moto Bikini. I got on the Bikes Direct, and it's like the perfect bike. I love it. It was like the right price, the right components. I'm happy with it, and yeah. So,
Yeah,
it's,
I think
you know,
you rode that bike for the first time in an expedition in Colorado in 2023. And
um,
now that's your go-to race bike.
no, it was Endless Mountains with Michelle and Paul and all them, because I remember talking to them saying, "Hey, I just bought a new bike. They don't make a derailleur hanger for it. So this bike turns into a brick if I break the derailleur hanger. And are you guys cool with that? Because I've got a couple bikes I can ride, but I want to ride this new one." So
And
that
you
was
still don't have a spare derailleur
still don't
hanger for
have
that?
yeah,
Okay.
the original one. It's a little scary, especially on an international race. But
But you've loved that bike, and I've loved that you can carry a lot of stuff on that bike.
on a weight.
You have that frame bag that's you put the bike repair kit there.
Yep.
Sometimes you put a water bladder there, don't you?
Not anymore. Normally, it's a bike repair kit, the tube, and then food. And I keep my water on my back because
Yeah.
the seat bag has, I think it's a 14 or 18 liter, I can't remember, but it's a big dry bag that fits on the seat. And so I don't have much weight on my back. And now that I think your body just gets used to doing expeditions. And so I don't have pain in my butt. I don't get any chafing. My pack never hurts me. And I'm always like, if I take other people's weight, I guess maybe it's because I ride every day with a 20-pound pack. When I get in the expeditions, I can take extra weight and everything. I just don't seem to have a problem. So again, if you don't have a problem, then we don't need a solution.
And we both use a seat bag though, even though I have a full suspension. It's I can't drop my seat very much with it, but it doesn't usually get in the way.
Yeah,
And
like if you
yeah,
had to,
dropper is another thing that is completely optional for expeditions since we're not usually doing a single track. You don't really need a dropper. You don't have do you have a dropper on your Moto Bicane?
I do, and I used it a lot at nationals because we were in
Oh,
the middle of a hurricane and we were doing really gnarly downhill, chunky baby head, and I dropped it. But both you and David were like, "No, we didn't use our dropper," and I was like,
I
"What
did once,
are you
I
talking
think.
about? Like,
I wished I did a couple of times.
Yeah. So, but typically I don't need to use a dropper. But even in Ecuador, I used it because I don't know if anybody that's watching this, you can look at my background. It's like super steep. That's Ecuador. That's a photo we took from the bus ride over to Cuenca. But it was like 1 minute you're going uphill, and you're going uphill for 2 hours, and so you want your seat post high, and then you're bombing a hill on the other side, and you're hauling ass going down, and it's way too steep and it's rocky and it's hard, and so you drop your seat post. But either way, the bike bag, the seat bag, if you do it right, it won't rub your back tire. If you keep your suspension pumped up properly and you have your bike configured properly, it shouldn't rub.
So whether you choose a hardtail or full suspension, I think also depends on, what your day-to-day usage is going to be too. Like you have several bikes.
Yeah.
You have one for downhill, you have one for racing, I don't know what else you have. I just know you have more bikes than I do. And so the bike I have, I wanted it to be all purpose, fun while I'm training too. So, if you're it's a different question on you know, whether you're going to use it just for races or if it's your only bike you're going to own, then you're going to
Then
have
it's
a different
different.
answer to
Yeah.
this, which bike should you use for the purpose.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
you did the right thing. I think the short answer to the question is buy a carbon fiber, reasonably priced full suspension bike from a reputable bike company with good components. Not
but buy
cheap,
the lightest bike you can get.
but the lightest bike you can afford. Yeah, but
Yeah,
good
it
components
makes a big difference.
makes a big difference. But yeah, I normal day to day, I ride a full suspension bike. I only ride a hardtail if it's perfectly flat like Virginia Beach, or I'm in an expedition and I just accept the suffering. I would much rather have a full suspension, but I can just carry so much more weight, and it's lighter and all of that, and so I choose to do a full suspension even though it's less comfortable.
Okay.
All right,
You just said you choose to use a full suspension even though it's less
I meant a
comfortable.
hardtail even though it's less.
Yeah, okay. Like, wait a second, you're double talking. Okay, we got it. It's straight. Um, the only other thing that we have on here about bike gear, specific, we have handlebar grips on our bikes that make riding for a long time more comfortable. I don't even remember what brand mine are. I don't think they're anything special, but they have a little bit of like a wing so that they're not just the round bars. They have like a pad to where you can
Yeah, like a
rest your
flat
hand on.
surface that your palms are laying on. Yeah, but I'm not. We used to use the ones with the little, like the horns that stick forward. I wouldn't recommend that just because so many of these races, especially like Alaska, like we were going through like really tall grass, really thin grass, it would have totally gotten hung up on the horns. So just
Yeah.
get the. I mean, if you're doing really long races, get the handlebar grips that have the wing or whatever you want to call it, the flat padding. So it's just better at when you're riding for 20 hours or something on a bike.
Yeah. Um, what about this gooseneck bolts facing
Yeah.
forward?
Okay. So this is one of my old bikes when because when you do expedition racing, a lot of times you have to take your bike apart and put it in an ARWS bike box. And so you have to take off your handlebars if you're a larger person. Like if you have a small bike, you might be able to put your bars in and it fits. But most people, I believe, if you have like a large or an extra large bike, you have to take off your handlebars. So you want the bolts facing forward so that your bike tool can get to them. Because if your bolts are facing backwards, like my old bike, your bike tool can't get to them as much. You can't undo the little the four bolts that hold on your handlebars. And so I actually literally on my stump, I think it was my stump jumper, I actually changed out my gooseneck to make sure I had the bolts facing forward. Again, you want to train like you fight, right? Like the military. So if you're going to do expeditions with an ARWS bike box, you want to like take your bike apart, put it in the bike box. How does it fit? Like, how can I do that quicker or make it more efficient? And if there's something like a gooseneck that you could switch out pretty quickly and cheaply that makes it easier, I recommend doing it.
And that's not the typical way they are.
No, every bike's different. It seems like every
Okay.
gooseneck's different, but the majority of them these days that I've seen on the pricier bikes, the bolts are facing forward, so you can get to them with your bike tool no problem. But I just put that on the list because one of my bikes in the past that I've used in expeditions had it facing backwards.
Okay.
So,
And I'm just not familiar with that because none of my bikes have ever had that.
right,
I mean, they've all been facing forward. I haven't had to change
as
the
they should be.
gooseneck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I mean, again, we're like everybody else. Like, I can't afford $7,000 bikes to go adventure racing. So I buy like $2,000 bikes,
Yeah.
and then things are jacked up, like the bolts are facing backwards.
Yeah. Okay. And if you haven't realized by now, if you're listening, we're getting into the nitty gritty. So,
Okay, get ready.
um, yeah,
About to
get
get
ready.
worse.
So we wanted to talk next about what we do to maintain our bikes, like before we leave. Like we know we're getting ready for a big race. What do we do with our bikes? Um, and one of the things we're having done as we speak, we should be able to pick up our bikes on Monday, but actually having a repair person do this for us. Actually, it's Lewis at Molly's Bikes in Chester is helping us out. We'd highly recommend him. But we are changing out our brakes. Why don't you talk about what he's doing to your bike and what we learned in Ecuador?
Yeah. And this is the first time this has ever happened to me. Ecuador was absolutely extreme. Like it, this just David on our team was joking. We didn't even need a chain or a cassette. We could just take it all off and leave it in the gear bin because we only pushed our bike uphill and then we rode it down fast. But there was no pedaling. There was not one time that we could do a pace line or anything. It was just either you're walking your bike up the hill because it was so steep, or you're hauling ass down at terminal velocity with your brakes on fire.
That's a
And so
little bit of an exaggeration, but not too much.
but not too much. Yeah, it was like
Anyway, our brakes were
talked to
literally
anybody did the
on
race, and
fire.
brakes were a problem. And other than the top teams, they can ride up this stuff, but the majority of people push their bikes up these hills. Either way, what we learned is brakes. The standard brake for the standard mountain bike was not adapted for Ecuador. Like what we were doing was extremely steep. We're weighted down, hauling butt downhill, but you needed to you couldn't just gun it like on pavement because it was baby heads and rocks. And so either way, the brakes started squealing and making a ton of noise. And the brakes wear out quick. And so like when you get your brakes set up for the race, and all of a sudden the brakes after 3 days are worn out such that the brake levers are approaching the bars to where you actually have to adjust them or you have lost your brakes. So if you read any of the race reports or talk to any of the racers from Ecuador, like tons of teams had problems with their bike brakes. So either way, we started doing some research. I talked to the Fear Youth guys, which are um, really really good on bikes. They know downhill stuff, and they were like, "Dude, don't use SRAM bike. You know, it's great for your drivetrain, but when it comes down to brakes, use Shimano." So we started looking at Shimano stuff, and they've got some brake pads that actually, I think they're metal, which is a better, um, more durable on really high heat situations. And then also, you can get a bigger disc, a rotor. I guess the rotor on your bike, you can put additional spacers, get a larger disc, and then also some of the brake pads that I can't remember, it's XT or something. I can't remember, but it's like the higher end Shimano brake pads. They actually have like little radiator fins. So it's like instead of just the pad, it actually has this like metal that sticks up to dissipate heat off of the brake rotors. And since I mean, I have a specific bike I only use for racing, and then my day-to-day bike is a normal bike. So I went ahead and bought the new Shimano brake setup to put on the bike so that I wouldn't have this problem again in a race. Which also a problem that both Caitlin and I think have the same brake levers. I think they're called Level T from Tram. You the adjustment so that as you're going downhill for a long period of time and your brake pads wear out, or let's say the oil gets hot and starts boiling or something, I don't know what happens, but at the end of the day, the brake levers start getting too close to the bars and you lose the ability to brake. So both of us had this problem during Ecuador, and the bike tool can't get in there to make the adjustment. So you actually have to remove the entire bike brake levers from your handlebars to make the adjustment, and then reattach your brake levers and get it all lined up right. It just seemed like a big pain in the ass. And so when you look at the Shimano, the higher level ones have the ability to make that adjustment on the outside of the brake lever with your fingers. You don't need any bike tools or anything. If it starts feeling funny, you just make a little quick adjustment. And so I was like, you know what? When it comes down to expeditions, like I want my gear set up for worst case scenario. I want the quick adjustment. And so yeah, it sucked. I went on Amazon, maybe it was $200 or whatever to get it done, and maybe your boy Lewis will charge another 50 or whatever. It's my race bike. I only use it in races. It'll be the same brakes I use for the next 5 or 10 years. So I felt like it was a good switch. I'm not sure what you got done. I think you just got your brake pads replaced, right?
I am getting new rotors as well. They were worn a bit, so they probably needed to be replaced soon anyway. But I'm also getting the rotors like you were talking about that has the fins on it that are cooling.
Yeah.
So, and they're bigger than my old rotors,
Yeah.
so they'll need a spacer too. So I guess it's fairly specific to your bike which upgrades you can fit or not fit.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have gone to the biggest size disc, which I don't remember what that was, but it was like one more size up that should make braking um, a little bit easier.
Yeah. Like the bigger
Hopefully
the
it won't throw
rotor.
me off because I'm really comfortable on my bike. So, and there's not going to be a lot of time to adjust to something that feels different.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. But when we were in Ecuador, like just to see how hot the brakes were, we dripped some of our water on it and it would just steam right off. Like they were so hot. We were concerned all the time, but I did fine. Like I think um, I had new pads before the race and they're pretty much completely trashed. They definitely needed to be replaced after the race.
Even though they were almost brand new before the race. But like we came
So
down like 60,000 feet of elevation. Like it was like riding to Mount Everest downhill, loaded down. Like brake pads aren't designed for that in
yeah.
4 day, 5 day period of time.
So aside from just what we learned of what we're upgrading, we would recommend that, in your regular maintenance of your bike, and especially right before a race, check your brake pads. That's pretty important to make sure that you've got a good set.
Yeah.
Um,
Or just put a new set on if it's a lot of elevation. Like if you're doing C to C, don't worry about it so much. Just make sure they're okay. But if you're doing something with high altitude up and down, definitely change them out. Just put the set that you took off into your backup kit so that if whatever reason you need them, you've got them. But just you don't want to. I've done this before. Like the Shenandoah Epic, I think it was my front brake pad totally went out where I'm metal on metal, and I'm like like the front's not working anymore. I'm just going downhill with my back brake only and just sliding into everything, and it was super scary and stupid. And yeah, so you just make sure like just spend the $25 and put a new set of brake pads on the bike.
and you did not have a spare set of brake
I didn't have
pads.
a spare. This was really early in my venture racing, so I had no idea. I didn't know what I was
Yeah,
doing. It's like my
gotcha.
yeah,
Also, before you race, what do you think you should do to your bike chain? We have on our list to oil it or wax, and
yeah.
we've just recently switched to waxing our chains. And why don't you talk about the difference and what you think
Yeah,
the
I
pros and
mean, this
cons
is
are?
this is a little bit like Samsung versus Apple. So some people are like, wax is stupid. You should only do oil, and other people are like, oh my God, oil's dumb. You should do wax. Everybody's got an opinion on this, so we're right in the middle, right? We've been normal people that just pull it out and oil it and go. Shane Hagerman, our good friend, said, dude, wax is the way to go. And our bike repair guy in Virginia Beach said wax is the way to go. So we've tried some wax and so far we're happy with it. And we did hear a little bit of squeaking during Ecuador because we had waxed our chains prior to Ecuador. They have like almost like bike oil. There's wax that you can add as you're going along. And so I'm kind of interested. I think we're gonna do a test in New Zealand where we go in. We're gonna test everybody's chains prior to the race, and then me and you have wax, and the other two have oil, and we're gonna see did our chain lengthen or not during a 5 day race, or I'm sorry, all of them have lengthened, meaning that there's been wear and tear. Which one lengthened more? And so we're gonna try that out in Ecuador. But either way, we no matter what, test your bike chain. And there's like a little tool in it, and it says, when you put the chain on, maybe it's 0.45, 0.50, something like that, maybe even less. And then it says replace it when it's 0.75. Anything over that, anything over 0.75, you are basically doing damage to your cassette, and cassettes are very expensive compared to your chain. So it's way better to replace the chain as it gets long instead of replacing your cassette. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah, so definitely test your chain length. The tool is really inexpensive to buy the chain length tool to see. I mean, it's the tester to see if it's too long or short. That's what I'm talking about. It's not
Yep.
actually a tool. It's a gauge like thing.
I like the
Um,
gauge that I think it's called Park Tool or whatever. They make it, and it's very precise. There's one that just you it's like fixed. It's like a piece of metal. Nothing moves, and it just says it's either long or short. But
right.
the one I
So
like
also though,
is
with
very
the oil or the wax, um, what what would you say the benefit is to waxing your chain? And I think we should probably share that you can buy a pre-waxed chain. I think
yeah.
they're quite a bit more than regular chains. They're supposed to last longer. Um, and or you can buy the kit to wax your own chain, and it's somewhat involved. You have to strip it first, and then you boil the wax, not boil, heat it up to
Heat it up. Yeah.
just the right temperature. And it comes with everything to, hang it up so it drips um, down in after you drip it or dip it in there and drip it off. Um, so I don't know, just talk a little bit about
Yeah.
your experience that we've had
Um,
so far.
and this is why my bike mechanic brought it up because I said something like I think we had just gotten back from nationals, which was during a hurricane, right? So like from day one, like we didn't even start the race, and there were trees are falling over onto racers' bikes and breaking them prior to us starting the race, right? Um, but yeah, so we drop off our bikes at the bike drop, and they're just laying in the rain overnight, right? And so a lot of chains, if they're just getting rained on nonstop for 12 or 14 hours, they get rusty. And so you can put the really thick oil on the wet lube or whatever. You can put that on there to stop water from getting into it. Um, but either way, it's just like adventure racing. Like every time you put your bike in the I'm sorry, expedition racing. You've been riding it for 12 hours, and then you put it in your bike box, and maybe it's wet or muddy or whatever. And so the thought is the wax is kind of like a covering on all pieces of the chain, and it stops water from getting in and on there. It stops it from rusting a little bit better than dry oil. And the wax gets all the way in because basically when you're heating it up and all of that, all the air bubbles come out and the wax all gets in there. Um, and again, everybody's got an opinion on this, and I don't know if we're right or wrong, but the idea of the wax is it's supposed to be a more durable, more efficient. Um, Efficient meaning the amount of wattage it takes to pedal is going to be less with wax than a chain that is using oil because the wax just lasts a little bit longer, gets better into the components. That basically go on YouTube and do your own research, but it's a big debate.
I think I like it. I think I can tell. And it might be my imagination, but I don't think so. I think it's it's just made it I feel like even my shifting is a little bit better because I've got the waxed chain. Um anyway,
Could be.
anyone should try it for themselves.
I think one of the drawbacks might be, let's say it was a really wet and muddy race. I've heard that if it's splashy, muddy, sandy, it can grind through the wax. The beauty of the wax chain is you can always put oil on it if you need to and go back to oil. But you can't like oil a chain and then put wax on it. So
Yeah.
it's like waxing is perfection from the beginning, and oiling is like the thing you do after you're done waxing. So I think for adventure racing, I'm leaning towards starting off with a waxed chain is better because you can always go back to oil during the race if you need to.
Okay, so pre-race maintenance, we said brake pads, check your chain. The next thing we have on the list is to make sure that
Yeah,
your tire sealant is
absolutely.
fresh.
Yeah,
And
tubeless
you,
is the only way to go for adventure racing. I can't think of any reason why I'd want to have a tube. So just do whatever you got to do to get the right wheel, the right tire, go tubeless. put the 2 ounces of, we use the orange peel stuff, but there's also stands and some other types. Doesn't matter. It's like basically it's like blood, it clots when it gets stuck in a hole. Um, so go tubeless. It's also lighter because you don't need a tube anymore. But you carry a tube with you because if the sealant ever blows out, you can always put a tube back in the tire as long as you've gone in the middle, used your hands to go through the entire inside of the tire to make sure that there's no thorns or anything like that. But basically, prior to the race, we always make sure that we've got fresh sealant. And I think sealant. I mean, everybody could argue over this, but my guess is I wouldn't go much more than 8 months without like if I haven't checked my sealant and made sure it's all fine or refreshed it, uh, after 8 months, I would assume it's not working. And just you need to just either do the right thing, take the tire off and get all the old sealant out, put a new sealant, or just add 2 more ounces of sealant to the existing tire and go if you're really lazy.
Okay, so we just raced in Ecuador.
Yep.
Did you put sealant in our tires before Ecuador?
Probably not because I did it right before Alaska.
Okay, so um then are you going to add
Should we do
more
it
now that we're doing New
before?
Zealand?
I might add an ounce to each tire before New Zealand because we don't have time between now and Wednesday to take off the tires and pull out all the old sealant.
So
But
it's a little bit of a guessing game unless you take the tires off and take out the old sealant, and that's a pain.
the reason you would do it correctly is to remove the weight. The
Right.
old sealant turns into like just a layer of snot
Rubber.
all around the outside. And so the proper way is to take the tire off, take all the old sealant out, put in the new sealant.
Okay.
But
In a perfect
the
world.
lazy way is just like, who cares about the extra ounce? Like, I'm just going to put in some extra sealant and then you're good to go.
Okay. Pre-race on our list.
Yeah.
We grease our pedal shafts.
Yes. Okay. So this is another thing. Normally, you go to a typical race, you just turn in your race and they put it in a U-Haul and they destroy your bike and then they deliver it somewhere and everything's missing. And but when you're in ARWS, you're taking your own bike apart, you're putting it in a bike box, and then you're taking it out of the bike box. And so I think it's really smart to put some like axle grease on your pedal shafts, like your when you screw your pedals in and out, because pedals are screwed in, one screwed the correct way, like clockwise, and one screwed the counterclockwise way, so that when you pedal, it doesn't unscrew itself. But when you try to get your pedal off, if you haven't done it in a really long time, it can get stuck and it gets really, really hard. So I like to put axle grease on the pedals so that they're on there, but you can get them off quick. They don't get stuck. They don't get rusted. They don't get, stuck. And a quick learning thing, like when you go to take your pedal off, because they are screwed on opposite, and it's always hard to remember, especially when you flip your bike upside down, which one goes which way. If you turn your bike upside down and the pedal is facing up, so let's say I'm facing my bike and the front tire is to my left and the back tire is to my right, and the bike is upside down and I want to take the pedal off that's facing me. If you push down on the Allen wrench, it's going to loosen the pedal. If that makes sense.
That doesn't make sense. The
But
way I remember it is that I always push the wrench forward towards the handlebars
towards
when
the
it's
handlebars,
upside
yes,
down.
which is pushed down. But yeah, either way. So the wrench turns towards the handlebars, and it doesn't matter which side the bike
Right.
you're on. If the bike's upside down and you have a pedal facing you, when you push down on the Allen wrench, it needs to be pushing down towards the handlebars,
Yes.
and that's always going to loosen the pedal. And you can
Right.
obviously reverse that. But that way, when you get to a transition area, you just remember push down or towards the handlebars on the pedal, and that'll loosen it. When you're sleepy and hallucinating, but either way,
Yeah.
if it's greased, it's really easy. Like you don't have to super tighten pedals down. Like when you're riding, it's tightening the pedals as you're riding. So when you put your bike together, you can just make it snug, but it ain't gonna unwind itself while you're riding.
So we also have a list of things that we just check, basically that they're tight.
Yep.
and things like that. You want to go through that list?
Yeah, we can do this pretty quick. Like the really easy way is just like take your bike, like move it around, hold the brake, hold the front brake, hold the back brake. You're looking for anything that wobbles or makes noise or clicks or anything like that. Um, like so for example, like bottom bracket. Take your pedal and instead of your pedal going around and around front to back, pull it side to side, like towards you. If you're standing looking at the bike from the side, pull it towards you in and out and just see does it wobble back and forth. Hold your front brake and then push the bike forward and backward to see if your headset bearings are having any type of play or clicking or anything like that. Wheel hubs, you can hold the bike seat and then move the back tire 90 degrees to the direction of the bike, basically to see is there any wobble in your wheel hubs, meaning the bearings and the wheel hubs are going bad. You can also take the wheels off and try to manually roll the bearings to see if they feel gritty or grindy or anything like that. You definitely do that with your pedals too. Like roll your pedals just to make sure that there's no gritty, grindy stuff going on in there. Um, the cabling. We had the problem. I think it was the national championships when I did it with Brent and Mary. Like we're doing bike drop and we're all like testing our bikes, getting everything oiled. We're ready to go, and then I'm like, wait a second, something's wrong. My front. This was I was riding my old stump jumper with the 2x10, and my front derailleur stopped working. I was like, what the hell? Like I'm getting ready to do national championships, my first national championships ever, and my bike's broken. And what happened is my cabling, the cable housing broke, and like my cable popped out. I was like, holy crap. So we zip tied it together with like 26 zip ties and it ended up working. But either way, you want to check all that stuff before the race. Like you don't want to get to a bike drop at national championships and you find out that your cable housing is broken. Like that was just rookie mistake. Um, check your seat to make sure it's connected to the seat post fine. Like basically anything that can be tightened, you want to make sure it's tight. Like your handlebars, your handlebars on the gooseneck, your gooseneck to the what do they call it, the headset, your seat to the seat post. Even if you have a full suspension bike, like just crank down all the suspension. Make sure there's nothing in your suspension that's loose, because the last thing you want to do is lose the suspension part during the race. You like Murphy is a mean person, and Murphy will show up at a race. So just to think, what would Murphy do to mess up your race? What would Murphy break? Murphy's Law, right? And then and just try to just fix it before Murphy gets a hold of it. Check your brake pads. That's another big one. Check your brake pads.
I
Um,
already said that. So, um, yeah, I think that's all of our pre-maintenance, pre-race maintenance that we do. And we wanted to talk next about packing it in a bike box. Um, we are using for the first time air tags,
yep.
which have been recommended by a lot of different people. Um, so we've never not had our bikes in time for a race, but we have had a scare when they didn't show up. So I'm excited that we'll be using those in our bike boxes this time around. But the bike boxes we use themselves, we've had them for quite a while, and we've used them for a lot of races. And Chip made them. Um, why don't you explain how you made them and what you like about them?
Yeah. If you just Google bike ARWS bike box design, there's a website that's got a couple options. You basically go to a sign shop and you buy the core flute stuff that's basically like political sign material. It's like a sign shop. So you buy it in 4x8 sheets, and then you go online and you look at the dimensions or whatever, and you build it. Basically I think we use construction adhesive and a few rivets and some duct tape and some strapping that you can get on Amazon for pretty cheap, and some what do you call them? Like plastic clips, like your backpack clips that you put on the strapping. And you wanted me to say like we did cut handles in it, so you like we didn't want people to use the strapping to carry the bike box, so we put like little handle places, like basically holes through the bike box. But because the core flute can cut your skin if you have a lot of weight on it, I went to like AutoZone or something and got spark plug wire conduit, which is like this like plastic, crap, and I just slid it. Actually, it's already slit because you have to put your spark plugs in it. And so we glued that on the inside of the handle. So it was like this nice round surface that doesn't cut your hand.
I
Um,
really love that about our boxes because, the heavier they are, the harder it is to carry, and it cuts into your hand if you don't have those. And I think we've actually used that and taped it on. I think you said glued, but I
yeah.
think it's taped with duct
Yeah,
tape.
I originally glued it. I think we eventually put some electric tape on there. Not electric tape, duct tape, white duct tape. Because the boxes are white, so we use white duct tape just so it doesn't look too ghetto. But Tyvek
So
also works on it.
the other thing I really like about our boxes, and this is just basics, it's like the top of it comes off completely. So it's not a clamshell box, it's just a stand-up box where you can remove the top of it. And I really like that you can remove that completely. Um, it makes it easier to get down into the box and get things out. We had a rendition of the box that before the one we have now that we sort of tried something where it just flipped over and it just wasn't nearly as useful as being able to just completely take it off. So I really like
Yeah.
that.
And also, some
Um,
people like to put wheels on the bike and or on the bike box, and that's pretty easy. You get the double-sided Velcro that's like 4 inches wide. Make a little piece of wood, put some wheels on there, and then that way you can drop the wheels in the bike box while it's on the airplane. But when it comes out of the airplane, you can pull the wheels back out and put it on. That way you can kind of carry it like a piece of checked bag. We've done that before, but normally we want to we're always trying to make weight getting onto an expedition, and we usually food is the thing that we're trying to bring. And so if we had the wheels, we would have to give up a couple pounds of, energy bars or 4 hour fuel, which is we're going to try that in New Zealand or like what are the Mountain House meals. So normally we don't use wheels and we haven't really needed them that much actually.
yeah, so it's our our boxes are a basic box. Then we take both tires off, both wheels off, and um the the frame goes in. I have to loosen my handlebars and slide them down a little bit so that it doesn't it fits in there. My bike is small enough that I don't have to completely remove the handlebars. Chip does, but so then the frame goes in there, and we even leave the derailleur on there now. We used to take it off just because we were afraid it would snap, but that's been no problem. We leave the derailleur on. We do have a foam pad at the bottom that's even maybe, I think it might be 3 or 4 inches thick.
Yep.
Um, just at the center where most of the weight is there.
It's
Um,
the front chain ring.
and the,
We're trying to
yeah,
protect the chain ring spines or whatever you call it from direct contact with like something hard.
yeah. And then there is a shoelace that is just at the right place inside the box. It's attached to the box. It kind of, there's like a hole that it runs out of the box and then back into the box. I hope that makes sense. I wish we could show a picture. Maybe we'll need to add one to the post. But then that shoestring is what I use to tie around the fork of the bike so that it's like affixed to the side of the box. And it just keeps it in place right there. And I think that works really well.
And the reason for that was twofold. Primary reason is the bike can't slide back towards the back of the box and hit the derailleur, right? So like you move your forks, the bike's sitting in there with no tires on, chain ring is on the pad, and then you slide the bike all the way forward in the bike box, and then we shoestring it, the fork to the side of the bike box, so it can't move. And so the bike can't slide back. So the derailleur, although it's sticking out, it never hits anything. The other thing I believe it stops TSA from taking all the shit out of your bike box because your bike's like connected. And so they want to go in there and look around for bombs or whatever the hell TSA do, but they don't pull it all out because the bike's attached. So I like the idea of that things are like secure, so it makes it a little more difficult for them to destroy your bike during the full cavity search.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so then we've got the wheels. And so they don't destroy those. We use pool noodles, cut lengthwise around each of the brake rotors.
Yep.
And that seems to work really well.
Yeah. And like painter's tape goes around the pool noodles, but basically each brake rotor has a big pool noodle around it. Yeah. And that keeps the rotor from getting bent or scratched up or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and the pool noodle essentially it's cut into pieces. So it's basically four pieces that kind of sandwich around the rotor. And then we use a Velcro strap to Velcro the two tires together in the center of the box.
Yeah. And around the frame, a lot of times around the frame too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the tires in the bike have now become one because you got your rotor where you want it, you got your cassette where you want it, like everything you feel is like strong, and you tighten it down so that even though somebody's throwing this bike around or it's in an airplane that's being, ups and down and side to side, nothing moves around, and it all is one unit that can't hurt any of the sensitive components.
And one thing we didn't mention when we take those tires off, to never forget the brake spacers in between the
Yep.
brake pads, because if you squeeze your brakes and those pads close, they're really difficult to open back up.
Yep.
You need a special tool generally.
Like a
Uh,
pry bar. But yeah,
yeah,
you can get them on Amazon. They're brake spacers. If you have typical brakes like Shimano or just typical brakes, they're pretty easy to get. Some of the bigger brake pads, the normal shims don't work. But basically, you want something jammed in there so that if you squeeze your brake pad, the brake pads can't come together and close that gap.
and they're easy to lose, those
Really
little brake
easy.
spacers,
And
but they're so important.
that's what the shoestring is for on the fork in the bike box. And the minute you're done with your spacers, you put them on the shoestring, you tie it, and that way they're always right there when you need it, when you put your bike back in the bike box.
Yep, I love that. Okay, so once we get all that in the box, we just fill in the space with whatever we can fit to make weight. We usually put in our sleep pad for extra cushioning. We usually try to put in our sleeping gear. So we might have a sleeping bag or anything fluffy like that. We put that in the bike box.
Bulky
We
stuff.
might even put our PFDs in the bike boxes if there's weight. Just anything to fill the space that would add extra padding.
Yep.
Um, and of course, the bike needs to be clean. That's kind
Yes.
of a given.
Especially in New Zealand, apparently it's like if you have any dirt on your bike, like it's a big deal. And so some countries are scared to death that you're gonna bring in some like flesh-eating worm in your bike
Yeah.
mud. So clean your stuff before you go into any country, and maybe even clean it before you come in the United States. We've never had a problem, but some countries are more worried than others. The other thing is your
So last
batteries.
thing,
Um,
oh, that's what I was going to
sorry.
say. Go ahead.
Yeah, last thing is your batteries. They don't want any lithium batteries on your bike. And literally, I have been pulled off a flight right before takeoff because I had something flashing in my bike box. And they were like, "We're not opening it. It's flashing. We told you no batteries. Something's about to blow up." And I almost missed the flight. But I had to run down into the bowels of this airport and like take my red blinky off the back of the bike and take it back up. And I made the flight, but I almost missed it. So
That was scary.
that was scary. So yeah, so don't have any lithium batteries on your bike. If you can take off your bike computer, like put that in your carry-on bag, and maybe even the bike, the sender, the
The
thing
sensor.
that's on your tire that has a 2035 little watch battery, like even consider taking that out, put in a little Ziploc bag or something, put in your carry-on. Just don't take the chance on getting missing your flight because you left a lithium battery on your bike.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to basically our last topic, which is like the basic repairs you should know how to do. And then we'll end up will end with what we take in our repair kit. But our basic repairs that, you know, we've used and you should probably know how to do, even maybe practice. Um, uh, why don't you start us off with that? Well, all of them. You've taught me all of all of
Got
what
you
I
all
know
these.
about bike maintenance and repairs.
Right.
So we'll just
Well,
hear it from the source.
most likely, the thing that you're going to deal with is a flat tire. And so, if you've done what we've told you you should do, and you're tubeless, and you have a flat, it's probably because whatever hole was in your tubeless was too big for the tubeless sealant to clot. And so you need a plugger, we call it. It's the same type of plugger you use on a normal car. It's like a piece of rubber that's like a long thin piece of rubber and a little stabby thing that like basically plugs the hole because the clotting fluid doesn't work. So we've got that in there. I mean, you want to be able to know how to plug a tubeless tire if it has a large hole. You want to be able to put a tube on the in the even a sorry, a tubeless tire. You want to be able to put a tube replacement in there if you can't figure out how to plug the 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 leak, which means you really have to use your hands to go through the inside of the tire to make sure that there's no thorns. Because with tubeless, the thorns could stay in there forever. Nobody cares about thorns because it's tubeless. Who cares? Because it clots. So there might be 26 thorns in there, and if you just put a tube in a tubeless tire without checking it, like you just ruin the tube. You don't have enough tube repair kits to replace it. So also chains are probably the next biggest thing that breaks. Um, maybe somebody didn't, make sure that their chain was young before a race. So you want the ability to have the little quick links. You want the ability to, remove a couple links off the chain if you need to. Maybe even, if you're really smart, you carry an extra two or three links to so that you can rebuild the chain to the correct length so the derailleur works on all the different gears. Um, so you want to know how to do that. You want to know how to adjust your gears. Inevitably, most bikes have instead of the electric, they have the cable gears, and things stretch over time. And so, maybe you do a short race, like a 24-hour race, and your gears aren't going to stretch that much. But in a 5-day race, like you're shifting a lot. At some point, your gears, like it's like they all of a sudden stop working. Probably because the cabling just stretched just a little bit. So you want to be able to do your gear adjustment. Oh, and brakes. We learned our brake adjustment. Um, Basically, when those levers start getting close to the bars and you got to move your fingers out of the way because you'd squish your finger to get to it and then you can't stop, it's really bad. So you want to know how to adjust your brakes as the brake pads wear down. You need to be able to adjust the brake levers so that they are further out from your bars. And then also you need to know, like, if you replace your brake pads with new brake pads, you're going to also have to adjust your brake levers back out so that they can accept the new brake pads. So that's a little bit more of an advanced thing. Um, but also just in general, like things on bikes like get loose. So if your handlebars let's say you wreck your bike like I did yesterday or whatever, and I have to straighten them back out. Like you want to know how to tighten your handlebars or straighten your handlebars, or if your seat post gets wobbly, maybe your suspension starts knocking, just basically anything on your bike that has a bolt, you need to know how to tighten it down. And, of course, some of the little things have the screw thing, some have the Allen wrench things. It's like, why can't they just use a standard tool? But no, you have to, every one of them's different. So that
So
was a lot.
yeah, you just went through all of the basic repairs. Like I actually feel like I could do all of those. Maybe not as well as you or as fast as you, but I could do them. And I think doing it in person, you really learn it a lot better than just watching something on YouTube but there's plenty out there to learn these things. But like the puncture repair, I'm usually surprised at how hard it is to punch that thing through and then to pull it out. You have to be pretty strong.
Yep.
Uh, and yeah, even using the chain brake tool, you have to be pretty strong. And it's kind of something I almost feel like I should just refresh myself on
Yeah.
how to do some of
You,
those
you don't
things.
want to learn it while you're in a race.
Right.
Like not your first time. Like do it, in your spare time to learn it. And then that way
Yeah.
at least you know what you're doing while you're in the race.
But those are the basics, repair a tire, repair a chain, and manage your brakes. Maybe even have
Yeah.
to replace
And
a
just
brake pad. Those
tighten
are
the
the,
shit
the
that comes
basics.
loose because you're on a mountain bike and everything comes loose. Yeah.
Yeah. So next level stuff, if you want to step up your game and you think you might need to, what would you suggest people learn how to do next level?
Well, I mean, catastrophic failure is like a stick gets caught in there and it breaks off your derailleur and your derailleur hanger. So being able to put on, I mean, hopefully you have a derailleur hanger, unlike me. And then and sometimes I mean, we actually in our expeditions, I'm carrying an extra derailleur. I'm worried that the idea is that the majority of time you never need it. I've never put a derailleur on a bike during an expedition race. But you have four people that have gotten $1,000 plane ticket to fly somewhere and $1,000 for the race and $1,000 for food and all this shit and stuff. It's like if a derailleur broke or jockey wheels went bad or anything went wrong, I don't want to ruin a race over carrying an extra half a pound of equipment. So we carry a derailleur with us. So you want to know how to put that on there or replace the derailleur hanger and put the derailleur on. The other thing, if the derailleur hanger and derailleur breaks, there is a possibility that you can go single speed by shortening the chain on a shifting bike. It's not perfect, but it'll get you through. Like you instead of walking, you actually can pedal in one speed. So you want to play with that a little bit and see, can you figure out how to make your bike a single speed? Um, Shifter cables are another one that can go bad. Shifter cables can break, and then either you have an extra shifter cable or you have to have a tool that can cut the cable housing short enough so that you can get enough cable to re-hook up your derailleur, your rear derailleur. I've done that before in Moab. Like I was on the what do you call that? Slick Rock trail, and like all the way at the end of Slick Rock where I would have had to walk my bike back for like 10 hours. And instead of walking my bike, I like took 4 inches of my cable housing, bent it in half, and I scrubbed it on the slick rock until I burned through it. It took me like an hour and a half, but I shortened my cable housing and it allowed the cable to come through and I rode the bike out, but I didn't walk it. So this is extreme. This is why this is showing up because it's our experience. But
Yeah, and now, like I said, we're going to share what we put in our bike repair kit, and a lot of what we carry is because we didn't have it when we
right.
needed it. Um, yeah, and you also have on here the next level is to how to fix a broken spoke.
Yeah, we haven't had a broken spoke happen during a race, but we normally are carrying the broken spoke repair kit that if you absolutely needed it, it's pretty light, but you can replace a spoke while you're out there in the field. Um, Slash tire is the other thing that we carry a kit with us, but we've never had to use it. But the idea is that the tire has like let's call it a 2 inch slash in it like you hit something like glass and you want to try to repair it and you don't have duct tape or something like that with you. So we have that kit with us. I think Park Tool makes it. It's like a 2x1 kit. We've never needed it, but we carry it with us just in case we had a slash tire. But we've never had that happen. Duct tape's
Yeah.
probably better. Like just get through the race, put some Tyvek on there, duct tape something, just you know, anything you can. But the idea is that if you have a slash tire, even if you put a tube in it, the tube's now sticking out of the tire and it's exposed. So you got to have something that holds the structure of the tire together so it can take weight.
All right, so those are the next level repairs we think would be the next, thing you should learn if you're looking to be ready for anything. And to be ready for anything, which you always want to be in an expedition race because you might be far away from help, etc. You need to have all of the stuff you need in your repair kit. So, Chip, what is in our bike repair kit?
This is maybe not an all-inclusive thing because I take the kitchen sink normally. But here's some stuff that you definitely don't want to miss out on. A spare tube or tubes. If you're on a four-person team in a foreign country, you want more than one tube. Tire levers, of course, to get the tire off the rim. You want a plugger because hopefully everybody is tubeless. So you want a hole plugger on there with plenty of plugs, like at least 4 or 5. I carry 2 ounces of tubeless sealant. I know for all of you guys, the light snobs, you're gonna be like, Chip's carrying too much shit, and you're probably right. But when a tube has a big hole in it, it starts spewing all the goo out of it. I love the idea. Or let's say this a teammate shows up and they have not properly maintained their bike. I have 2 ounces of sealant, so I can put it through the valve stem and get their tire fixed. We carry a shifter cable with us. It's pretty light. In case the shifter cable breaks, we don't have to cut through the cable housing to shorten the housing. We can just put in the new shifter cable. So I do carry that with us. We carry a new, brand new valve and stem um, for a tubeless tire, which usually some tubes have a replaceable valve, some don't. But if a valve for whatever reason goes bad, or you lose it, because you screwed your pump onto it and then you screwed the pump off and the valve goes flying into the leaves. Um, we've got a replacement valve. Of course, you need a bike tool with all the different things. We actually carry a small multi-tool with pliers, and the reason is a lot of bike tools don't have a set of pliers that you can actually hold stuff, turn stuff, pinch stuff. And so I don't know, we've got that on there. Cable cutters, something you actually could cut through metal with. So it's kind of like and this is probably too much. This is from my Moab experience. Instead of having to grind out your thing on the rocks, you could actually use these cutters that work through steel, but they're really, really tiny. We got them from like a fabric store, so they don't weigh too much. We have the tire patch. Like I said, if you slash your tire and you need to put like a 2-inch patch on the tire, Park Tool makes one that's it's nice to have. So far, we've never needed it. Most of the stuff we've never needed. So all the light people out there are like, Chip's carrying all this extra crap for no reason, and we never need that. And they're probably right. But I like having it. We normally carry in expeditions, we carry an extra derailleur in the kit. If I'm in something like the Shenandoah Epic that's like a 24-hour race, it's not that big of a deal. If the whole race goes to mess because my derailleur broke, I didn't just waste $2,000, right, or whatever. I didn't waste a trip to Ecuador because of the derailleur. So I don't carry it with me in short races. But you should have a derailleur hanger. Each person's bike is different, so you want a derailleur hanger for each bike. That piece is designed to break, so it's probably $25. Like just get one, put it in your bike repair kit, and have it ready for your bike. Because normally the derailleur doesn't break. It's always the derailleur hanger that breaks or it gets bent. And having a spare in there can really save your race. And then, of course, you need a bike pump. And then you need a bike CO2 and the kit that makes the CO2 work on your tubes. We almost never use the CO2 in a race, always use the bike pump. The CO2 is really there if you're on tubeless tires and somebody's riding low pressure and they burp the tire, meaning that the tire has come off the rim and you have to put it back on there and you can't get it to reseat. The CO2 gives you a better chance of reseating it than the pump. But the CO2 is really just there for a burped tire. We would almost never use the CO2 in a race. So that's our typical repair kit that we have. There may
Did,
be some things that are missing, but yeah.
I'm not sure you mentioned tire patches. Did you say that? We
Yeah,
usually
that's where the
tube.
Park Tool tire patch is like a one by
Oh,
two
okay.
tire patch in case there was a slash in the tire. We have that on there. We've never needed it, but we have it just in case.
And also that one tool that is actually two in one. It's tire levers and the chain tool in one. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
It separates the chain and it brings it together.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. The chain tool. Not we don't carry that during the race. What you're talking about is the chain tool that I have on my bike kit. So if I need to do the chain, it has the ability to hold the chain. Kind of hard to explain, but it's like a little coat hanger that holds the chain together so that while you're messing with the chain, it doesn't come apart and just dangle. But we normally don't have that during a race.
Not sure we're talking about the same thing, but that's okay.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's pretty extensive what you have there. It's a heavy bike repair kit.
It is heavy.
I think I have carried it before when
And
it's been needed and I
which I mean, this probably could be a whole other podcast, but some teams go as light as possible and cross their fingers that nothing goes wrong. Our team, we typically are known to be durable. We're not as fast. We're a little older. We're a little slower, and we carry more crap. But the chances of us making it to the finish line are higher because if anything goes wrong, we have the ability to fix it. But whether it's humans, like we have extra thermal gear, we have extra food, we have water, we have an extra bike repair kit. We've got all of this stuff. And so that's every team needs to make their own choice. Do you want to be durable to make sure that your entire experience from beginning to end is perfect? Or do you want to be fast and light and try to go for that podium? And that's okay. Like there's not a right way and a wrong way. It's your way. And you make your own choices. And my choice typically is carry more shit and be durable. That's just me.
yeah. Well, we all pack our fears in one way or another, and hopefully we're getting a little better at balancing. I think we're more middle of the road there. We don't carry as much as we used to.
Sure.
But perhaps with the bike repair kit, we still might carry a little more than most would, but still insurance.
Definitely insurance. And
So,
that's why I ride a lighter bike and I have it in my frame bag. And so my bike probably weighs the same as other people's bikes. It's full suspension and I just suffer through the pain of having a hardtail. And that's fine
smarter.
because I don't complain when I suffer. So we can all live with it. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. So have we beat this to death?
I think we beat it to death. Yeah, I think we covered all kinds of bike stuff. If anybody has any questions, of course, we're we
Or
forgot to say
suggestions?
our phone number. We are not using our phone number anymore from Google because we weren't using it that much, and so Google took it away. But either way, find us on Facebook. It's Chip and Andrea, and we're the only ones with like adventure racing photos, black and white from endless mountains or something. So so hit us up if you have any questions or if you want us to cover anything on the podcast.
My Facebook profile picture has been updated since then,
Has it? Okay.
and I'm hurt that you didn't notice.
Gonna make me look now.
It's my Ecuador race um, photo.
But at least
Anyway,
it's a race photo.
yeah, it's a race photo.
Yeah, it's
It's
your
my
Ecuador one.
identity.
Yeah, I'm still on the black and
Just
white
kidding.
one
Sort of.
from yeah. So you've updated yours. Either way, you can tell that we're adventure racers if you look up Andrea Anderson or Chip Dodd on Facebook. You'll find us. For those of you that are a little younger, Facebook is the thing that your mom and dad used to use.
You can message us through the Disability Facebook page too, or
That's
Instagram too. We are on Instagram. We just
yeah,
don't spend as much time there. So, all
correct.
right. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of this, and hopefully, we'll see you at a race soon. And I think that's it. Happy New Year.
And look forward to a New Zealand magnificent race ramble, which I hope goes very well.
Me too.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment. To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for Disability Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.